I hope you enjoyed this conversation I had with Natalie Pine. Her firm has done tax letters for over 20 years, and they've been iterating, improving upon their process for sending those out and preparing them. And so if you do tax letters, or if you're considering doing it and using Holistiplan's functionality to do so, I think she's got a lot of insights for you to help you do it well. And I'll tell you what, if you stay till the very end, I'll come back and I'll tell the story of how the tax letter functionality within Holistiplan, it was in fact built as a Christmas present from me to Natalie. I'll tell that story at the end. I'm here with Natalie Pine. She is managing director and a financial advisor at Briaud Financial Advisors in College Station, Texas. She's a CFP. She also has the Chartered Special Needs Consultant designation. We're speaking today because Natalie's firm has done client tax letters for literally decades. And over that period of time, she and her firm have built up a lot of wisdom and best practices around tax letters. And so, given that it's tax letter season, I'm grateful that she's willing to share some of that wisdom with us. I will say two things. One, Briaud Financial Advisors is where I myself worked as an advisor for almost 10 years before I left to pursue my software dreams. So a lot of the DNA of our tax letters within Holistiplan is inherited from that experience. Also, Natalie and I are married to each other, so that's why we have the same last name. So welcome. Thank you, Natalie. So was I right that y'all have done tax letters for more than 20 years? Does that sound accurate to you? You may not know the exact beginning date.
I do not know the exact beginning date, but I know that when I joined 18 years ago, we were already doing them very inefficiently, but we
Right.
were definitely doing them.
Yeah, and we can definitely talk about the journey of how we tried to, and that you continue to try to improve the process every single year. In fact, that's really where I want to spend most of the time is on process and project management. We have plenty of videos and stuff about how you make a tax letter in Holistiplan. For me, what's really interesting and helpful is you've learned over the years how to run this process as efficiently as possible, year
Hmm.
over year improving, and that's where I think our customers can really benefit. So I'll do one softball question before we get into that. And so y'all have done tax letters for a lot of years. What would you say are the primary benefits of doing this process every year?
So the greatest thing really is to communicate to the CPAs or to the people self-filing those things that are not available on tax forms. So things like QCDs that a client may not keep track of, that doesn't appear anywhere. And so it's super useful to send those to the CPA so that they don't miss them or put them in itemized deductions where they shouldn't go.
Right. So tax return accuracy is a big driver for y'all. Um,
Absolutely.
some bullet points that I've written down, kind of it can go either way, but building bridges with tax preparers, showing
Sure.
them that you're on the ball and you're not just a joker. Like when they think of like who's an advisor, who's tax aware, you're showing them that you are. Maybe kind of the flip side of that is if there's ever a dispute with the tax preparer as to um, whether you told them about that QCD or whatever it is, you have documentation that says that it was communicated to them.
Well, I
Um,
would say honestly, the biggest thing though is that if you are a nerdy CFP as we are, you are spending a tremendous amount of time doing tax planning at a very intense level. If you can't actually implement it through the tax return the way it's
right.
supposed
It
to be
never happens.
implemented,
Yeah.
it's useless.
Right.
So, really, accuracy is one of the greatest things. And as you said, it's definitely a great tool to say, I told you this is how we want it implemented. Because we also send emails to the CPA when we do the thing, and then we send the tax letter as a reminder, hey, by the way,
Right.
don't forget this on the return.
Yeah. I'll tell you one last thing, which has come up, which I had never really thought of, but our customers have told us that another benefit of the tax letter is it's just a reminder to your client, we did all this cool stuff last year. You know what I mean? I think
Absolutely.
we as planners, we're always looking forward. And so like whatever you did last week, you're like, forget it. It's dead to me. Moving on to the next thing we're doing. Like I'm planning. But taking a moment to say like, look what we did. Like we together came up with these strategies, and let's just remind you that I did them last year. I've heard a number of our customers say that as one of the primary values of doing tax letters. So
Oh, that's absolutely a benefit as well.
great. Okay. So I want to talk about how y'all organize your tax letter process. You have hundreds of clients. Do you do tax
Mhm.
letters for all of them, most of them? How do you even think about that? Just to kind of set the stage for the scale of the project for y'all.
So we have 270 clients. We used to do tax letters for all of them. We made a strategic decision not to do them for everyone because some of the tax letters were basically just outlining the 1099s or very basic information that we didn't feel was necessary.
Got it. Okay, so there's some minimum amount of activity that has
Yes.
to be crossed for you to say, okay, it's worth doing a tax letter. Whereas you used to do it for everyone, and sometimes the letter would just say, we didn't do anything special this year. Is that what they used to
Right, and that
do?
doesn't look too great.
Yeah, that's true.
Or, I mean, what we did have is it would say, here are the 1099s you should have received, and maybe it was a direct transfer and they don't get the 1099, and then you have a whole conversation
Oh,
that's
right.
not worth it.
So some types of rollovers, there's no 1099-R issued,
Right.
and so you could even cause confusion if you sent that letter in certain cases. Got it.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so that sets the stage. So there's still like hundreds of people getting tax letters from y'all.
Absolutely.
And so we're recording this in mid-January. Um, I think we should talk about like what y'all do throughout the year, but maybe just because we're in tax letter season, maybe start with like how do y'all kick off the project of, and you probably do this in late December or something, but like you kick off this project that says we're about to enter tax letter season. How do you organize that project so everybody's running in the same direction at the beginning of
Sure.
that tax letter season?
So we do not kick off until January because we are rushing to the finish line at the end of December to actually do the tax planning. So Roth conversions, RMDs, QCDs, donor advised funds, all of those things we do up until even the very end of December. So we always kick off the first full week in January. And so we kick that off, I believe it was January 6th. And basically, the first thing we do is we gather a list of all of our clients, and the advisors go through and indicate where something happened. We use actually Holistiplan's list of all the things that can be included in tax letters, as well as the custom fields that we've added over the years.
So can we talk about that kickoff, Mika? That kickoff
Sure.
itself, is that a meeting like literally all the people in the company, you get them all in one room? Is that like physically happening or over Zoom or whatever? And you're saying, okay, we're kicking off tax letter season. Step one, it sounded like you said, is you get a list of all your clients and you come up with at least a high level idea of who we're doing these for or not. Or maybe you don't know that yet. Maybe it's just like this is the list of clients who are getting tax letters this year. We're starting off assuming everybody. Are you are you uh, is that first step and what I heard also was you're deciding what the content is of letters. Like we're definitely going to talk about QCDs. We may not talk about I don't know, advisor fees or whatever like. But are you segmenting out also like which clients get letters at all and also when? Because presumably some people are doing their taxes before others. Like, is that all happening in that kickoff meeting? Setting
Yeah, so
goals
the
and deadlines?
No. So the kickoff meeting is just to say, here's the list of clients, here's the spreadsheet. We use a spreadsheet as well as Holistiplan staging. Those are the two pieces that we use. And we just go through and say, okay, this is the list of clients. We're kicking off this project. By next Monday, we have an advisory meeting every Monday. It's just our advisory team. And so the first thing is your job, advisory team, is to go in. Each advisor has a client, right? They're all assigned. So all of our clients are assigned somebody, and they have to go in and say yes or no to the tax letter by the next Monday.
Got it.
So this past Monday, we then go through and say, and during that kickoff meeting, as I said, we go through the categories of what we're going to include and not. So some of the things that are in the list of Holistiplan things are accrued interest on bonds or collectibles that we found CPAs don't care about, they still miss it. So we just correct it on the back end. There are other things that trust distributions or something specific to our clients that we will go in more detail as to when is it included and when is it not.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Right. And so those advisors during that week, they're looking at their clients and they're saying, do these, do I think they have the activity that would arise to the level of them having a tax letter or not?
Correct.
Right. Okay. So you've culled your list to a certain number. Is there then a round of figuring out like what your deadlines are? Because like I said, like, some people get their K1s in September. Like you don't need to be getting them a tax letter the third week of January. But some clients are nerds and they love using TurboTax and getting their taxes done at the end of January. Do you have that level of segmentation where you're trying to figure out what the project plan is for who gets what, when?
We do not have that. We used to do it, but really we leave that up to the advisor now.
Hmm.
They should know their clients well enough to know who to do at what time. And they work with, so we also have two people assigned, I should have clarified. One that does the tax letter, completes it all, and one that's the reviewer to make sure that it's accurate and includes everything. So the reviewer is typically the lead advisor. That person is communicating the timeline with the person who's preparing and saying, I want you to do these 5 next. I want you to do these 10. And we actually use the Holistiplan staging thing to say, like, these are started, right? These are the ones that need to be done next.
Yeah, I'll say yeah, it's true. Holistiplan, we did make a staging screen. I mean, in part based on my experience with a firm where we had this two-step process where you had the preparer and then the reviewer. And so there's nothing that says that the statuses that we built into Holistiplan a given firm has to use. I think the point is like at this stage, in your kickoff stage, in your project design phase, decide as a firm which statuses are important to you. I'm guessing because I'm
Hmm.
looking at it, I have it up on another screen here on my computer. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 different statuses. I'm guessing y'all don't use all 8 of those. Y'all
Nope,
have made
we
a
do not.
choice that
Hmm.
says, okay, not started we care about, maybe opted out we care about, reviewed or ready for review. Like you've chosen which one, and that's an important step. Like that's the point is like I want to try
Hmm.
to highlight for our customers, take the time to design the project, design what your phases are, make the list of clients, decide what your universe of statuses is going to be, design that first, because then as you get into the project itself, you're able to track with one uniform set of statuses and steps and milestones in one tracking system. You could use Holistiplan or a spreadsheet, I don't care. But that's just a critical step to kick that off first. So, all right, just highlighting that. Great. Okay.
Hmm.
And y'all do not. So when I worked there, I'm just saying, telling people like when I worked there, we did try to segment out who's phase one and who's phase two and who's phase three. That was like a formal thing we had. I'll admit, like Holistiplan does not have that sort of uh, sectioning within our staging screen. So even if you wanted to do that, you'd have to do that outside the system. So,
So
but the
we
advisors have flexibility as to how they try to attack their list and get it done in what order.
Yeah, Holistiplan actually made our tax letter process so much faster that we get everything out by the end of February, and 90% of our clients have not filed by that
Nice.
time.
All right. Well, there you go. I love that. Yeah. So yeah. So yes, in the old days where we were using Word docs and stuff like that, it's true. We kind of had to make choices like how do you, given the fact that it takes 3 months to do, how do you get it all out? Now you're saying you're able to get it all out faster. Well, that's nice. We
Well, we
didn't.
have standard language, standard formatting, all these things that we would spend time on that were useless, we don't have to do with Holistiplan.
Nice. Well, we didn't rehearse that, but thank you for
Yeah.
saying that. It's very kind.
It
um,
has. I mean, it's really made a huge difference in the amount of time it takes.
I'll highlight another thing that you said, which is you're also making choices as to what's going to be in the
Hmm.
letters or not. That's another project design decision that should happen at the firm level. Because like you
Hmm.
said, something that we frequently would see tax preparers get wrong was amortized bond premium. I don't even remember what the deal was, but like we would for a while include that in the tax letters.
Hmm.
but we would still see mistakes on the return. It was like, so why did we do all this work to include in the letters and we still saw the mistakes? And so there's a decision that every firm needs to make around how much work am I going to do versus the ROI on that work. And so every firm needs to decide based on their own types of um, tax strategies they pursue, knowing what they see as patterns, maybe in mistakes of returns. What are you going to put as part of your tax letters versus not? You don't have to use everything that Holistiplan put in its universe of sections available to you. You don't have to use them all. But if you decide as a firm, it makes it a lot more consistent across all the advisors and also much more efficient. You have one person doing every nth degree of information and another person, just doing 3 categories. And they're of course going to finish a lot faster, but their stuff isn't going to be complete. There's that weighing function you got to do.
Well, and that's what we do after we've said yes or no to everybody. We do a sample tax letter. And so in that, we include number one, what are the categories that could be included? So we include every single one that's a possibility. We
Mhm.
then also standardize all the language for those that are not formal categories that are part of Holistiplan. So there's some we've added. As an admin, you can add a category. We standardize that language. And so we all agree, usually second week of January, this is what a sample letter should look like. And then there's less decision making about how do I put it in, how do I not, so it's very uniform across all clients.
Got it. Great. Okay. Yeah. So again, project design, take the time up front to do it. Um, so it'd be interesting for us to talk a little bit about some other things that we did to try to scale tax letters, but I want to talk a little bit about how during the year. I feel like I have a good understanding of how y'all get your tax letters done, your tracking status within Holistiplan, and then your goal is at the end of tax letter season, everybody's got a reviewed and sent status, and you're done. Great.
Mhm.
Um, so now we're in 2025, and you're doing a Roth conversion in March, and you're doing a donor advised fund in August. Do you try to record those events in the tax letter during the year, or have you found that really the best way to do it is every year in Q1, just look back at what you did in your CRM system? Do you try to incorporate it into your process when you do reportable tax things, or you just take care of it in Q1?
So we do it throughout the year. We have actions in Advisor Engine, that's our CRM. And as part of those standard actions, it says, have you added it to the tax letter? Yes or no. And so our operations crew have to put in there that yes, they have added it to the tax letter. It's not always the way we would want to present it to a client, but at least number one, the tax letter started. So when you look at the staging screen for Holistiplan, it says started. So we know we can use that for the spreadsheet to make sure, okay, that one has something in it and we don't miss certain ones. And two, we have a capture of hopefully everything that's happened, and it's just a review of the information rather than going in to get the meat of it.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's great. And I think that more just anecdotally, I feel like more and more firms are using Holistiplan in that way. They're incorporating tax
Mhm.
letter data entry during the year just because we get more support tickets randomly during the year about it than in the very early days when it was just in Q1 when we ever heard about tax letter. So I think that's
Mhm.
becoming more and more standard. It just becomes part of your process, just the last step in the checklist when you do something that's reportable.
Well, and we've tried it 100 different ways. I've never had people put information in proactively, but honestly, it's so easy to like start a tax letter and throw in something that people are doing it very consistently now.
Yeah, we used to try to track it in the CRM as a specific note and then try to copy it over. Yeah, we
Mm.
should. Yeah, can you indulge me in a trip down memory lane on how we did things previously? Because if someone doesn't use
Sure.
Holistiplan, there's other things you can do to make tax letters. So if I recall correctly, one of the versions we did was we had a big Word document.
Hmm.
So that was our version of designing the tax letter every year. We had a Word document which had every single possible section in it, and then
Hmm.
you would use that as your template to start a new tax letter, and then we would delete out the sections that weren't.
No, you'd turn it red. Remember, you'd turn it red and then the
turn it red, and then the
reviewer
reviewer would check that.
would
Yeah, that
delete
makes
it.
sense. Yeah. Whereas in Holistiplan, you're building from nothing, and we were taking away from everything.
Right.
And then we
But then we
did,
had mistakes because they'd forget to take out stuff.
yeah, exactly. And then I don't know if y'all still do this, but this is something we did for a while. And again, I'm just putting ideas out into the world because advisors may find this useful. Um, we had a relationship with one CPA where I don't know, we had like 50 clients in common with
Hmm.
them.
Yep.
And I don't know if y'all still do this, but we kind of worked out with them rather than send 50 tax letters that looked so similar. We designed in concert with that tax preparer a single spreadsheet with all of our
Mm.
common clients listed. And then we had kind of like as columns, I believe, did they do this thing or not?
Hmm.
I don't know if y'all still do that, but that cut down on like dozens of tax letters we had to do. Again, we were trying to solve for a problem of tax letters taking a ton of time. I don't know if y'all still do that, but that was a thing that we did at one point.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore for two reasons. One is what you're talking about. The client wouldn't get a copy, they'd get a
Mm,
generic message, which did not show the quality of what we had done. And second, it was across several tax preparers in that firm. And so they would miss things. And so we now do an actual tax letter for all of those CPAs. Now, one thing we did also do was use a document storage system. Ours is ShareFile, and we put the tax letters in that storage vault basically, so that the CPA can come and get it whenever they're actually working on that return.
got it. And at least avoids sending 50 emails. They at least can just go
Right.
to one folder and grab all your common client stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Two more questions I have for you that are kind of in the weeds. Some advisors that we work with, they try to compile all the 1099s and send that with tax letters. Is that something you've ever considered doing? Do you do that for some of your clients on their request? It just seems like a big project, but I've often wondered like how often do advisors get into doing that?
So we do not, and the reason is because you have amended ones that get sent out on a regular basis, and we're not tracking that over time. So if there's an amended 1099 that comes out, we're not necessarily going to know about it and know to send it. So we put that on clients. However, we do send out a newsletter quarterly that goes through all of our financial planning things that we do for our clients on a regular basis. And as part of that, we do say if you want us to send your tax information, just let us know. Like we're happy to do it, but it's
Got it.
on request.
It's like an opt-in thing. Yeah, that's smart. Okay,
And usually it's for our larger clients.
got it. And one of the things that kind of surprised me when we first built the tax letter functionality was especially a friend of mine who is a CPA, he was afraid that tax preparers would be offended by the tax letter, that it was too basic. And so he suggested we build, and we still have this idea of like a client version and a CPA version of the tax letter. And when you toggle between the two, the they're very similar. It's just like the language
Hmm.
is slightly different. Do you find yourself using those two flavors, or you just use one consistently and not worry about it?
We use the two self-prepare versus CPA.
Oh,
So
really?
if we send directly to the client, if they're the one preparing it, and we use the CPA version if it's a CPA, it does, I mean, the language is different and it does sound better if you're
Hmm.
sending to a CPA that you use the CPA version. So we
That's
do.
not the answer I was hoping for, but that's fine. Every
Oh,
year
were
I
we
think,
supposed to
should
have?
I get rid of that CPA version? And every time I ask somebody, they're like, yeah, keep it. So that's fine.
Sorry.
We will continue to
It's
maintain both
nice.
of them. Yeah. Um, Anything we missed as far as project wise, how you put it together, how it maybe we didn't talk much about when you get into the tax return reviews, how the tax letter factors in. Anything we missed in your process as we went through all these stages?
Yeah, so tax letters do not factor into our review unless there's a mistake, because we have documentation that we use that's direct to pull out all the information to review the return itself. But one of the things that I think works really well for us, as I said, we have a person doing it, a person that's reviewing it to make sure that it's accurate and we haven't missed anything. And we use Holistiplan Staging Center to document like where it is in the process, and also then to have our operations staff actually send it out or upload it or that kind of thing. So we have the tracking system.
Mm.
So it makes it really easy to see on one screen, like we have 50 left or we have 25 left. And we actually do have a celebrations channel in our teams that just says, hey guys, we're getting really close. Wait, great job. We've done this many. And so we can kind of gain that flywheel momentum on the project by having those shout outs.
And public shaming when people are behind on theirs.
I mean, I don't do that, but you could.
You said something interesting. I just want to make sure I heard this correctly. Did you say that the actual sending of the letters is another person? Like, do you have the logistics of sending the letters be a separate third person? Because you have the person who does the initial prep, you have the reviewer, which I'm guessing is the advisor.
Yes.
And then what I heard is logistically, just, we're talking about 250 emails. You have another person in that screen, and when they see it flip to complete ready, they send it and then they flip it to complete sent. So it's actually a third person in the process. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, we do have an operations team that is separate from our advisors and financial planners, so that our planners and advisors can focus on that nerdy planning we love to do. And so our operations staff, who does all of our execution, they send things out or upload them, and they'll liaise with the CPAs on providing 1099s or K1s, or because we do alternative investments as well. So anything that's tax related, they're doing the I just need to send a document. Our financial planner would be the one that's doing more complicated or answering more complicated questions. So we do have, some operations staff.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Well, this has been enlightening. Thank you very much. You were one of the OG tax letter senders in the industry. And so I appreciate you sharing 20 plus years of wisdom and learning with the rest of us. So good luck with tax letter season this year as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and if anybody wants to contact me directly, has questions, please do.
Great, thank you.
All right, I hope you found that useful. So here's the story about how tax letters were built as a Christmas present from me to Natalie. I guess you figured out in the video that she and I are married to each other. She's a financial advisor. We used to work together. So she was not an early adopter of Holistiplan. Her firm was not an early adopter. I think they signed up maybe like a year or two in or something like that. And it was like in the spring. And when she signed up, she said, it would be really amazing if you could build something to help us do this tax letter process. As you heard in the video, like it was a very long, multi-month process for us. I say us because I went through it too when I was in the firm. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm totally going to do that. And then, November comes along and I still hadn't built anything. And she's starting to get nervous because she's like, look, tax letter season's coming up. If you're not going to build this, I got to go and build all the infrastructure to do it our old way, which is with, Microsoft Word and a bunch of, infrastructure they had to build manually. And so then Christmas comes along and I still hadn't built it, but I was like, I promised her, I was like, I'm going to do it. And I don't, when you're doing something creative, and I consider coding to be a creative thing, sometimes the idea is so well formulated in your head. This can happen like when you're writing a newsletter or something like that, or an essay. Like sometimes the idea is so well developed in your head that it just kind of flows out of you. And so I was able to, because I'd been thinking about tax letters for so long and had lived it as an advisor, honestly, I cranked it out in 3 days, version 1. I mean, it's a different thing now, but version 1, which was a usable version, I just knocked it out over a Christmas break, in a weekend. And so I was able to deliver that to her. And the joke is it was my Christmas present to her, because we did get it launched in time for whatever that, I can't remember what year that was, that year's tax letter season. So anyway, that's always the joke. And it's actually pretty true. The tax letter functionality was built with her in mind, but I knew from my experience there that it was something that other advisors would use, and that's why we built it. But anyway, that's just part of the fun of how the sausage gets made here at Holistiplan.